okay, let's record this a second time. I finished recording it, and then my phone ran out of memory, and then it all deleted. Welcome to Best Uber Moments, Part 13. So normally I love driving drunk people, okay? I absolutely love driving drunk people. We're usually singing and dancing and talking and laughing and having a blast. Except, obviously, when they throw up. Not a huge fan of that one. But now I found something else I don't like about drunk people. When they pass out in the back of your car like this guy. Oh my God. So we get to their destination and I'm like, hey, we're here. Nothing. And I was like, hey, wakey, wakey, we're here. Wakey, wakey. Nothing. I start moving their knee. I start tapping their knee. Wakey, wakey. Nothing. I start going more. Nothing. So, of course, I get out. As you guys saw in the picture, I got out and I opened up the door and I was like, hey, I was saying their name and I was like, hey, we're here. Hello. Nothing. I start shaking. I start, hello, everyone, we're here. Hello. And then all of a sudden he looks at me and he's like, you don't have to yell. I'm like, I don't want to yell. I just want you to be up. I need you to wake up and go into your house. I have another passenger waiting. I have somebody else queued that's waiting for me to pick them up. I just need you to go. And by this time, it's been 15 minutes. So I call an Uber helpline and I'm like, hey, look, please help me. I don't know what to do. So they're like, well, sir, this is Uber Eats helpline. You're looking for Uber People helpline. I'm like, well, yes, that's why I chose to help. And then it said, hey, you're on a current trip. Do you need help with it? Yes, I do. I'm not doing Uber Eats. He's not food. He's a person. They transfer me to somebody else and they're like, well, sir, this is the Uber Eats helpline. You need Uber People. I'm like, should I be phoning 911? Should I be doing anything? No. Let me transfer you over. They transferred me over and we need to ask you these certain questions. So I answered all the questions again. By the way, it's on speakerphone. The door's open. I'm standing a foot away from the door. I am not being quiet. I'm being pretty loud about the whole thing. Because I'm a little Twitter-pated. And then they finally passed me to the Uber People helpline. And they're like, sir, you need the crisis line. And I'm like, shouldn't I just be calling 911? No, let us transfer you to the crisis line. They transferred me over to the crisis line, and the guy's like, hey, you should be phoning 911. Okay, thank you. Hang up. Phone 911. Talking to the people, and they're like, what do you need? And I'm like, I don't know, police, fire truck, ambulance. I have no idea. I want this guy out of my car, but at the same time, I'm worried about him. I don't want him to die. I don't want him to have alcohol poisoning. I need him to be okay. So they're okay, well, we'll transfer you over to the ambulance. I'm talking to the ambulance people. They're like, okay, well, sir, you need to put him on his back. I'm like, I don't feel comfortable putting him on his back. By the way, I found out I broke the rules when I started trying to wake him up like this, where I was pushing his shoulder. Because we're not allowed to touch anybody. They're not allowed to touch me. I'm not allowed to touch them. Obviously, it wasn't sexual. I was just trying to wake them up. That was my bad. Apparently, they told me in order to wake somebody up, you're supposed to honk the horn. I don't understand how that works. Because the horn's on the outside of the vehicle. They're on the inside. I'm not smart enough to understand that. But, anyways, so I'm talking to the ambulance people. They're like, okay, well, you need to pull him out, lay him on the ground, on his back. I'm like, can I just wait till you guys get here? Nope. You need to pull him out, put him on his back. And, by the way, they're like, well, you need to check to see if there's a heartbeat. Is he breathing? Is there a heartbeat? I'm like, I think so, but let me check. And I'm like, okay, I'm on the phone with the ambulance people. They're telling me to check to see if you have a heartbeat. Yes, they do. And then he starts finally moving around, and I'm like, okay. I mean, he's not fully awake, but he's still kind of moving around. And I'm like, okay, cool. Maybe he's awake. No, he's laying like this. And I'm like, sir, I'm talking with the ambulance people. They are on their way. Are you okay? No answer. And I'm like, they want me to lay you on the ground. So I grabbed him by his feet and I shimmied him over and I was going to pull him and he's like, I'm awake. What are you doing? I'm totally awake. And then he lays back down on the back seat and goes back to sleep. Ah! And then I'm talking to the ambulance people, and they're like, well, you're supposed to lay him on the ground. And I'm like, I don't feel comfortable. I don't want to touch him. I don't want to touch them. They're like, no, you need to put him on the ground. I'm like, okay. And I'm telling him, I'm like, they want me to put you on the ground, so I'm going to put you on the ground. So I start dragging him, and then all of a sudden he gets up and he's like, ta-da! What, is this a joke to you? Is this some kind of game? And he's like, what? I don't know what you're doing. I don't know why you phoned emergency services. I'm completely fine. I was just sleeping. It's been a half an hour. You're not just sleeping. You were passed out. I was worried about you. I don't know what's going on. I have a passenger waiting. I'm talking to the passenger, and I'm saying, sorry for the wait. Please cancel. And they're like, no, I'll wait. And I'm like, okay. So as he's telling me he's fine, that's when the fire truck was coming around the corner. And I'm like, see, look, that's for you. They are here to check on you. And he's like, well, I don't know why you're making this a big deal. Fire truck gets there, and I'm like, this is your guy. This is why I phoned. He just all of a sudden stood up because this is fun. This is a game. And they were like, huh? And I'm like, they were canceling the ambulance, but there you were. They're like, well, we'll just do an assessment anyways. We'll check him out. And the guy's like, well, I'm sorry. Like, it's just no big deal. Like, I'm like, do you know how many people I've seen die from alcohol poisoning? Okay, I don't know if I've seen any, but like I've witnessed people have alcohol poisoning that need to go to the hospital. I don't know what happened from that point on. But he doesn't know that. But I'm like, I'm worried about you, and you're in my car, and I don't know what's going on, and you were not responding to me, and it's been over a half an hour. The trip was 45 minutes long. It was a 10-minute trip. And then so the firefighters are like, okay, so do you live here? And he's like, no, I live in Canada. The firefighters and I all looked at each other and we're like, yeah. And then the lead firefighter was like, yeah, so we are in Canada? This is Vancouver? He was like, oh, well, I knew that. Like, he's trying to, like, this is all a game to him. This is not a game. And then the firefighters are like, well, we'll just walk you back home. You know, you said you lived here. We'll walk you back home. Make sure you get home safe. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I'm going to go. And the guy's like, well, I'm sorry. I don't know what else you want me to say. I'm sorry. And I was like, okay. And he's like, well, aren't you going to say sorry to me? Sorry for what? Like, what? Sorry for caring about you? Sorry for not knowing what's going on? I'm worried about you? This whole situation's happening? I'm not sorry for trying to save your life. Why would I be sorry? So after all this, I just completed the trip, gave him 1 star, and then I still had that passenger. So I told the passenger, I'm like, okay, now I'm on my way to pick you up. And she's like, okay, cool. I get there, and she's like, tell me the tea. So I told her everything, and she's like, he wanted you to apologize to him? And you did not hit him? And I'm like, no, I didn't. She's like, I would totally just... she's like, take me to his address. Yeah, she hated him. The arrogance from him. The arrogance. And the nonchalantly, like this was no big deal. And the fact that he was like, well, I was just sleeping in the back of your car for a little bit. It's not normal. You don't just sleep in the back of the Uber when you've arrived at the destination for a half an hour. Like, I have no problem talking to you after we get there. But if you're sleeping, passed out, drunk, I don't know what's going on. Oh! As you guys can see, I'm a little riled up. And after I dropped off the next person, I just came home. I am home now, filming this TikTok, which I believe is now a 2-parter. And now I'm going to go to bed. Don't forget, guys, hit that like button, or whatever the heart button there is, and subscribe. Oh my God.